name is Victoria Francesca. I'm a dance artist and a filmmaker based in central Monmouth County, central New Jersey. I graduated from Rider University with a dance and film degree in 2021.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
So I've been out it'll be 2 years in May. And since then, I've been working on building two different businesses. I've been working with a production company called Crash Content Productions. So we're a film production company, but we do a lot of different things. We do music production, we do videography, we do narrative storytelling, podcasts. So we do a range of things. And we all came from Rider, the original team. And so we've been producing content on that YouTube channel. And then we're rolling into becoming a business in the new year, which is exciting.
That's really exciting. It's really exciting. And there are a lot of exciting things to talk about there. Because from storytelling to filmmaking and all about content writing is really beautiful. I love that. I love that. Okay, so tell me, is that where you stay now in Los Angeles? That where you were born, or did you come from another place?
So I'm currently in New Jersey. I'm not in Los Angeles. I have been there a few times, and I originally intended to move out there and start my career there, but the pandemic kind of mixed everything up. So I'm currently in New Jersey, so on the East Coast.
Okay. So were you born in New Jersey?
I was actually born in New York. I was born in Brooklyn. I lived there for a year. My whole family's from New York, and then we came to New Jersey when I was 1 year old.
Mm-hmm. All right, Victoria, tell me a little bit about your experience in New York. What do you remember of your young adolescent years? Because as you will see here, everybody have a story to tell. We really like that so much that we know a bit about you before we know what you do. Tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my whole family comes from New York, most of my family, and so I spent a lot of my young life going back and forth from New Jersey to New York. I grew up being very comfortable with the city. As I've aged, I'm 23 now, and since as I've gotten older, I've kind of found myself branching away from the city lifestyle and being more curious about a slower lifestyle. Where I live in New Jersey, I have a very diverse terrain of land. We have beach very, very close, about 15 minutes. There's also farmland about 10 minutes from my house. So I have a lot of different options here and not just cities. And having known both in my life, having known the city, New York style living when I was younger and being with my family, and knowing now this more central Jersey beach farm style living, I am starting to prefer something a little bit slower. And my family is really interesting. I come from a family of artists. So my mom, she has a photography company, and my dad is a stand-up comedian in the tri-state area. And my brother has done stage theater and music his whole life. So we all kind of have worked together and we support each other as we've grown up, which is really cool.
That is so powerful. So you are not going to be afraid now to tell your mom or your dad, I want to be a dancer, no? Not those classic parents who, no, you're going to be a doctor. No, you're going to be an engineer or something like that. Because when you have those kind of parents, it becomes a little bit difficult for you to tell them, I am an artist.
Yeah, no, they definitely understand. They're definitely supportive. And what's cool is I've learned a lot from their journey. And so they've been able to tell me, watch out for these things or make sure you do these things. And so, over time, they've become my teachers as well as the teachers that I worked with when I was at school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is your background coming from a family of artists. Is that why you are an artist from what you you point at the end of the day that is because of that or maybe for some kind of personal reasons?
I would say it definitely had an influence. My mom put me in dance when I was very little. I was 3 years old, and I grew up in a great studio with a great family dynamic. I loved dancing at this studio, and I think it had an influence. They never forced the arts on us. It was always I could quit dance anytime I wanted to. My mom was never a super intense, like competitive dance mom. And same thing with my brother. We just kind of found ourselves drawn to it, and I think our parents had a lot to do with that because they were so open and vulnerable about their artistic expressions and their forms of artistic expression, and they weren't afraid to go after that in their careers and in their life. And I think that just invited my brother and I to be creatively compelled to do what calls to our heart.
That's lovely. That's great. So when you look at the trajectory that you have right now, are you more into dancing or into filmmaking? Where would you like us to spend most of the time?
So it's an interesting question, and I'm asking myself it every day because I really do feel that I cannot live without both. I mean, I can live, but I cannot. I don't feel as creatively fulfilled unless I'm working on both. And one thing I have learned, though, with that dual passion is that I do have to do one thing at a time. And so that is my goal to eventually be doing one project, a dance project, and then another project, a film project, and having the ability to switch from both. But I always say I'm called to dance because it was my first love. And even when I'm working on film and not necessarily working on dance projects, the dance education and the mindfulness and the kinesthetic awareness that I've gotten from being a dancer transfers over so beautifully into filmmaking. So I'd say I'm always dancing. No matter what art form I'm doing, I'm always dancing. So, yeah.
That's lovely. That's lovely. I like that. I like that energy. The energy is there.
I love it.
All right. So, what do you love most about dancing? I want you to spend some time there.
Sure. I don't want it to just like pull the answer out of my head. Like I want to sit with that a second because there's a lot of things that I love. Um, I love the way it makes me feel and how it allows me to experience my feelings. I'm a very um, I'm very intrigued by sensation based living. So, touch, smell, sight, and really being mindful of what the body is experiencing along with the mind and connecting the mind body experience. And I think dance has given me an outlet to express that and to be able to move and to learn myself through movement. And um, yeah, I think that's what I love most about it is it's it's an internal journey, and no matter if I'm on stage or if I'm dancing on my own or wherever I am, I'm always learning something new about myself. And I always think the best time that I have when I'm dancing, the best moments are when I'm able to step back and I almost have a tear come to my eye because I don't know what it is, but I've connected to a deeper part of myself through movement. And that's why I love dance, truly.
So, I mean, when you dance, you get this kind of internal fulfillment in it at the end of the day, correct?
Yeah, it feels like coming home.
We usually advise people to, the idea of finding your passion. It has always been important. It is important today. It will be important even in the years to come. We should encourage younger people, particularly, to find something that they love. And, you pay attention to Steve Jobs' speech in Stanford. Now you remember how important that speech is, because talking of the passion, that passion is very important. We need to find what we love. Living is not just enough to make money and spend money. It's also about fulfillment. At the end of the day, how do you feel about what you do? Because when you really love it, when it really gives you a satisfaction, a kind of inner satisfaction, then you can go anywhere, you can do anything for it.
I want more people to be invited to live that way and to experience life that way. And I know that sometimes there's restriction to that, and I'm very grateful for my scenario. I'm still living home. I'm working on building out my career. I'm starting two businesses, both in film and dance. And so I have that flexibility where I don't have that financial um, heap, I guess I'd say, or burden just yet. And I know that not everyone is in that place. So I feel very grateful. But I do know that anything is possible no matter the situation that you're in. And I really think it all starts with mindset. And I think when you start to really look at life and realize that we only, to our knowledge, get this one time around, why would you not want to do anything else than what makes your soul absolutely light on fire? Like, that is my belief. And that has stopped me from saying yes to a few jobs that may have been stable and close to what I enjoy doing. But I believe, oh, I apologize for that. But I believe that there is a way to have what makes your heart happy. And I think that's just commitment to going toward it and making it work for you.
Now, what kind of dance do you do? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I do a range of different things. I grew up doing a lot of competition dance, so it's mainly like a jazz kind of pop style. I did a lot of lyrical. In college, they trained us a bit more in ballet structure, so I got a bit of that and some modern dance. Personally, my favorite type of dance is contemporary. I think that's my favorite because it's kind of an open-ended type of dance where a lot of different forms of dance fall under contemporary, and it's really influenced by the music and the emotion. And so I love dance that tells story. I'm not a huge fan performance-wise. I like watching it, but not performance-wise of doing abstract dance. I like when there is a motive and there's a reason for the movement. So that would be my favorite kind, like contemporary style dance.
How do you put story in that, in the kind of dance that you do? Tell me about that.
Sure, that's a great question. And I saw something recently on Instagram the other day that kind of connected to that. And I forget who was speaking, but they put it so beautifully is that our bodies become a vessel for expression. And I think, especially through dance, there's so many forms of storytelling. And obviously, being a filmmaker as well, I understand the very visual, literal art of storytelling. And then there's also songwriting and there's poetry. And I think dance, it kind of combines it all in a way because visually you're seeing a person with a certain expression on their face, and that's telling you that maybe there's heartbreak in that movement. And then you're also listening to music often, unless sometimes there's dance, which is to no music, but often you're listening to music that also is conveying that story. And then you have this other element of movement where the person not only has a facial expression that's telling you, okay, I know this person is dealing with some kind of pain or heartbreak, but also look at the way their chest is moving in response to that, and look at the way their legs are moving. And I think it's dancers have the ability to embody poetry, use music to then express it, and then also take emotion, which is a tidbit of acting, and put that in there all as well. So I think it's a really good middle place for a lot of different forms of storytelling, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So, because now you are actually in the middle of it, you also do music or you do only the dancing? Because I understand that now you have two businesses within the area of, I think one in the side of film or filmmaking, and the other one in the side of dancing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you produce music. Is that correct?
I don't produce music. We
Uh-huh.
For Crash Content Productions, we do have musicians in the group, and they'll produce music for the content that we create or content for other clients that we're going to be
Uh-huh.
working with. But I don't personally produce music.
All right. But now that you have a good idea of the dance, no, I look at everything we do as tools. In that, if you know how to write very well, then your ability to write become a tool,
Mm.
so that it become a vessel for you to tell your story. If you are a dancer now, and maybe your body is what you move, then that become a tool for you to tell a story, and this story is coming from your inside, your inner expression, which you are just basically narrating to people through your body movement. So because you understand these dynamics now, um, and you are working with people who create music, how does that your knowledge influence the kind of music that is going to be produced at the end of the day?
Interesting. I think I'm not sure if it necessarily influences the music directly. I think the music and dance, in a general sense, influence each other. I think rhythmically, we as human beings have so much rhythm that exists in our body that has little to do with music itself, and music is just kind of an extension of what we already have in our bodies. Um, and yeah, I think what you said is pretty accurate, is that when you're a dancer, your body is your tool, that is your instrument, right? So, we have the heartbeat, right? Our heartbeat, it's nobody tells it, nobody plays the heartbeat for it to have rhythm, it just does. And the same thing with the breath. There's always an inhale and an exhale, and these are essential parts of movement because you need the heartbeat, you need the breath to stay energized, to move. And I think even if there's no music, you already have that internal rhythm. And also, if you go as far back to being a baby, we are rhythmic beings. Even in the womb, we can hear sounds through the womb. And I just find that so beautiful because music influenced dance just as much as dance influences music. They kind of go hand in hand, which I think is really cool.
I remember one time, I think I was in the secondary school then. I don't know, you call it high school in US. I'm originally from Nigeria, so at the point we're doing music in school, I was asking, what is music actually? We're asking the teacher to tell us, what does it mean? Of course, we listen to music. Every one of us listen to music in different form of a different type of music, in different genre and all of it. But what really is music? I think the teacher said something like, music is an organized noise
Mm.
because now inside of it there is a lot of this tick tick ting, do do,
Right, right. I
all of
love
it,
that.
all of these are different segments of their own. But
Yeah,
now you are going to organize them together to have a rhythm, and so that there is, because there is a pattern in it, you come to like it, you come to enjoy it. Because even in nature itself, there are music, it's enough to look at maybe when there is a rainfall, you are listening to it, all these
hmm
sometimes it look like it stop a little bit, then it start again. Or maybe you are in near your tap where you are brushing your teeth, then you open the tap, maybe the water just drop, tack, tack, that is creating a pattern for you. So if you manage to organize all this together, then it becomes an instrument for you that you are going to use to create a poetry, to explain something,
yeah.
to tell a story. So this is where I really find it to be very fascinating now. So the other part of it, which is the dancing part of it.
Mhm.
Now you dance to those rhythm, to those pattern. How do you match it up? I mean, how do you make that communication in a way that uh, even though you're not the one that is creating the music, but you just fall in line perfectly? I don't know if you can say anything about that.
That's a good question. And I love everything you said, like about being a little kid and the students asking. Like that's such an amazing mindset for a child to be like, what is music? I can't touch it. Like, what is it? I feel it. I know it's here, but what is it? That's such a good question because personally, rhythmically, I find that I know when I'm in the pocket, if that makes sense. I know when my body is moving to a certain tempo. And if there's a beat, a shift in the music, sometimes I shift with it. Sometimes I stay back with the old tempo, but it's often it still feels right or it still looks right. And I don't know I don't really know logically how to put it into words. And I know that there's a lot of people who study kinesthetic awareness and movement and rhythm and how that connects to music itself. And for me, it's just a practice of deep listening. I find it to be meditation. If I'm able to really listen to the music and even the music of silence, because I think that silence is music in itself, it encourages me to move in a certain way that I can feel the music. And the funny thing is, I've never been extremely musically inclined. I am like infamous for picking up instruments and quitting a week after. I don't know why. I've played like 9 instruments, including the xylophone. Like I didn't even, I've tried everything, and musically, I never stick with it. And I think it's because maybe it has something to do with the fact that I can't let my body do that listening and do that deep listening and move out of just holding, a flute or a guitar or something. Like I need that physical element to it that I think, when you're playing an instrument, it becomes a little bit restricted because you have to stay with the instrument. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I don't know exactly how or what rhythmically makes me in it and makes it work, but I can feel it when it's happening.
All
Yeah.
right. If you can feel it, that is what it is.
Yeah. There you go.
that is good. That is good. That is good. You said something that I think is important, no? I don't know if you want to say something about it again.
Mhm.
The sound of that, even the silence have music, no? Then I don't know if that is a music title. the sound of silence. I
Oh,
don't remember. I think there is something like that, though. Of course, maybe somebody have been thinking about that. Do you want to say anything about that? How do we extrapolate that music in the silence? What does it mean? What do you mean by that?
that's a good question. Because I say it and it's like I know my meaning, I know what it means, like in my experience, but not necessarily how to put it into words. But um, I think even in stillness, so if we take our body, right, if we're still, if we're sitting still, there is still movement. There is still the blood that has to circulate through the body. There's still the breath that has to continue to inhale and exhale, like I mentioned before. So even in stillness, there's movement. And so even if a room is quiet, right, and there's no sound, you still sometimes hear the humming of birds, or you hear a car pass by, or you ever, I know if you ever get really silent, sometimes you can just hear what the air is like in a room. Maybe there's a vent blowing, or maybe there's a light humming sound of some, there's always something. And I think that's what I mean by there's even music in silence, because even in a completely silent room, if you get completely silent, you can still hear your own heartbeat at some point if it's that quiet. So I think that there's never anything, but there's never nothing, even in stillness and even in silence, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that. All right, I wanted to say something about the balance. I don't know if it is a delicate balance, we can call it like that, no? In that there is this communication between you, the dancer. Okay, not the music that is already prepared now, live music. How you manage to communicate and create a kind of a delicate balance where you are just responding to the music. Now, okay, let me explain what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a place in Nigeria. The part of Nigeria where I'm coming from is Assam. So among the Assam people of Nigeria, there is a particular dance that is common among us. It's called acrobatic dance. It's a type of acrobatic dance, which in my language is called Ibabonelemi. So when the dance is done, the person that is dancing, the masquerade that is dancing, is basically turning in the air. With one touch of the feet on the ground, the body is moving in the air, just turning like this.
Mm.
Now, of course, it's turning because there is a music that is also playing. And the music is absolutely rhyming with the sound, with the legs of the acrobat,
Mm.
so that there is a perfect balance. So now I'm looking at you now as a dancer. I'm trying to understand how do we create that perfect harmony between you are not a musician, you're not the one playing the music, the instrument, but you are so perfectly in tune, in line that we can we can look at it like a big masquerade. All of you are together in one, just exhibiting. So I wanted to talk to me about that harmony, that balance that is able to exist between you, the dancer, and the person that is doing the music.
Yeah, that is a great thing to talk about, because it is such a balance, and it's a beautiful balance because the musician and the dancer are talking to each other. I forget, in college we studied I forget the name of the dance. It is a, I think it's a, I think it may have originated in Spain, and I don't remember exactly what it was called. And we just took a quick lesson on it. We took a world dance class, and we got little tidbits of different types of dance. And this one form, they directly say that the guitarist or the drummer and the dancer are dancing with each other. So there is that balance. If there's going to be a drum beat, the dancer is either going to do something on the drum beat or pause and do something on the next beat. And there's a constant communication. There's a constant, the musician tells me to do something just as much as I think the dancer, if it's a live accompanist, will tell the musician to either slow down or speed up. And it's, I think a lot of it just comes down to kinesthetic awareness too. I think human beings in general have the ability to really get in touch with that balance, whether you play an instrument or you have any dance training at all. Because I think when you really learn how to, like I mentioned earlier, get in touch with your sensations, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, most importantly, what you're feeling. I think that's the biggest one is for a dancer. When you're able to do that, a lot of this stuff is already unlocked for people. It's already accessible. And it's just a matter of that deep listening and really getting in tune with that. And there's a lot of different ways that people can do that. There's mindfulness practices, there's guided meditations, different modalities such as yoga, Pilates. They're great exercise programs that really get you in touch with that kinesthetic awareness. And I think that kind of helps with the balance between the musician and the dancer for sure, because then you understand what's going on inside a little bit more, and then you can focus on what the musician is telling you externally as well.
Hmm. Thank you so much for that explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I will just say one thing there. If you want to respond, you can. In that a couple of years ago, I wrote a book where I talked about the dance that I made mention of just now, the traditional dance, the acrobatic dance in my place that is called Igba Bonelemi. So at a point, I was saying that the dancer was so perfectly in line with the drummer, as if the dancer, was using the leg to drum because he was so in tune. No?
I love that.
That as the leg is touching the ground, that is where you also hear the sound. There is no mistake at all. It's so perfectly in line. So I said, this is beautiful.
I love that. That's such a great like observation too. Like it's almost like the dancer is playing the music. Like it's coming from them, but it's clearly not. There's definitely a wavelength that happens. I took this really cool class in college. I think it was called Dalcroze Eurythmics. That's what it was called. And we had to play an instrument, which the name is not coming to my mind right now, but it's basically a small piano about this big, and it also has like a pipe, and you blow into it and you make noise using both like your physical, like making sound like you would like a flute or a trumpet or something, but then you're also using your fingers to play like a piano. And that class was all about the dancer and the musician connection. Unfortunately, I was only able to take one class. That was actually right before COVID, and I only took one class, but I really enjoyed it because it helped me understand that balance and understand that the musician and the dancer need to have that relationship for, as you said, for you to be able to observe this perfectly aligned leg that's almost like the drumstick hitting the drum.
That's so perfectly beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, is it possible that when we do this as a dancer and or in combination or in collaboration with the drummer, that we can actually be telling a story, and we can actually be narrating a story uh, through dancing? In this sense, you as a dancer, you're actually telling a story without even saying it, but by dancing, you are communicating something that people need to understand. Let me understand that.
Yeah, I think um, when you're telling a story through music and through dance, I think a lot of it comes from the felt experience and comes from what emotions come up for you. And there was something great that my 11th grade English teacher told me in high school was that symbolism is there even if it's not noted that it's there. And I think that's what, I mean, when you're dancing, you're not actually saying, like, this is how I feel. And even when you're playing music, if there's no vocals, you only can go by what the music evokes for the person, and that's the story. And on the music side, I know that in music theory, they actually teach different, I guess you would say, rhythms or different phrasing, different chords that equate emotionally to, let's just say generic, like general emotions, happiness, sadness, anger. And you can actually teach in music theory which set of chords, notes are going to express that feeling. And in dance, it's similar. We're not exactly taught to do that. I think we're more so influenced by the music in that way. And so it's almost like dance theory, because the music, you go to music theory and they say, this set of chords is going to be what we call sadness, right? And the dancer is then able to hear that. And because that's kind of like all around the idea of what sadness would sound like in music theory terms, then I think any person, dancer or not, is able to kind of feel that and then respond to that. So that is how story is told, through emotion and not necessarily exact pinpoints of like, this is what's happening. On the contrary, there are big ballets there are big ballet productions where you can see a full story unfold. You can see props. You can see that. I mean, dance is such a diverse art form. There's always different things that can make it more storytelling like or more abstract. But I think somewhere in the middle, just in general, I think it's more so of what emotion is evoked, and that is where the story lives.
Thank you for that. It is really powerful, no? Dancing and also the music. Yeah, both of them always go together. They are husband and wife.
Sure.
um, Now, how does the music make you feel when you are dancing? Because now, like we have already understood, there is this communication, that there is this flow of information or energy, whatever you want to call it. So you are in sync with it. That is why you are moving your body. But before you can move your body, which is now you are transmitting something to the audience, the person that is listening and watching you, you
Mhm.
first need to feel it before you can transmit it.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
what do you feel? What does the music make you feel?
Alive. I know that's like such a sounds just a cliche answer, but that's the one way to sum it up without saying like this type of music makes me feel this and this, because different music makes me feel different things. But just in general, it reminds me of just how alive I am in this vessel, in this body. And no matter what the genre of music, that will then influence just how alive or in what ways I feel alive, which is cool.
What is your best music? Which one have you, based on what you have performed so far, which one would you say this is my best?
So I'm funny. I like almost every genre of music. I don't find myself particularly drawn to country. That's just my personal opinion. But I'd say everything besides that, I'm often like my main playlist has a million different genres, and I find myself really drawn when it comes to movement. Really drawn to music that um, has a I'm gonna try to way to describe it because it's not a specific genre. I mean, I definitely love orchestral music. I definitely love a little bit of like a sadder, like sad, soft pop, sometimes a soft folk style genre. But outside of genre, I really love to move to music that has um, like a really pretty type of sound overlaying something that's darker. So, and I often find that in some instrumental ballads because it can start really beautiful with some nice piano and softness, but I like music that has that undercut of something more painful. And I think that inspires movement that's really intrinsic to what I'm trying to express most of the time when I'm moving. And it's to express emotions that can't always be put into words. And that's why I'm drawn to music with that duality. So music that's really beautiful and yet it feels painful at the same time. I like music with that complexity.
How do your parents, I mean, your friends react to your dance? What did they tell you? What did they say about the kind of dance that you do?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about that. I mean, I've grown up, being on stage often, so often I had my parents supporting me, which was wonderful. Yeah, so there's always been positive feedback and constructive criticism when necessary, which has been helpful. I like when someone tells me maybe you needed to practice that routine a little bit more, or maybe you needed to do that a bit more. But that's more from my competitive recital style background. When it comes to my current style of dance, which is a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more free movement, um, I find the feedback to be positive. Not, I'm trying. I often don't find myself sharing uh, too much of my performance anymore. I used to perform a lot, when I was younger, and now what I do often is in film work, and that's really where I see the feedback. But when I'm performing personally, when I'm just kind of doing what I consider like a movement ritual for the day, or just dancing because I feel like it, it's become a more solo experience, which I've never really thought about until now. But I was so used to performing and sharing with people for a long time, and now it's just something I continue to do as a career, but also do it for myself more, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Now, tell me more about your typical performance. Is it like you go on stage to perform, or you perform in a closed environment where it is recorded. So tell me about it.
So currently, I'm doing most performances through dance film. So I usually am doing most of the filming myself. Sometimes I have someone that I hire out to help, and they'll do the videography if I want the camera to be moving. But for the last few films that I've done, it's been on a tripod, and I've just kind of moved it around. Earlier in my career, when I was younger, in high school and things, it was almost all on stage. I wasn't really introduced to the world of dance film until college, and since then, it's been really cool to transition into that medium for performance.
Tell me something. How do you feel about your dancing? I mean, how do you feel about this part of your career where you dance and yeah?
I feel a few things. I feel very grateful for what I've been taught, for the people that I've been able to meet along the way, the performance opportunities, and where that's led me. And now I'm going through this transition of, like I mentioned, growing up it was mostly stage performances, and now I'm doing things more solo where it's on film. And I'm feeling, at first there was some rigidity because I loved being on stage and I wanted to continue that. And now I'm feeling more so like the movement that I'm practicing is very in line with who I am. And that feels really good to be finding different ways to move that feel like home, like I said before. And I'd like to share something that I'm doing currently. If I don't know if you took a look at my website at all, but I'm working on something called the Art of Creation, which is a combination of dancing, filming, and painting. I've loved to paint. It's always been a hobby of mine. And so I was inspired through some other dancers that I know to try painting while dancing and kind of using the body as choreography and also as a paintbrush on the canvas and then filming it. And so I am working on a series right now through the Art of Creation. And I'm also developing a workshop where I can share that with other people. So I would say that I feel very positive about my dance career and where it's going, because it went from being on stage and going through that. I'm grateful for the journey because I stuck with dance my whole life, and I went from stage to college, some more stage through college, and now I've been really working on this new medium which combines dancing, painting, and filmmaking. And I'm excited to share that with other people because I found the process to be really, really healing and really fun.
All right, really healing and really fun. All right, on your website just now, I pull out this, the art of creation. That is what you just made mention of, right?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us what is going on here?
Yeah, so this is what I was mentioning. So a few friends of mine in college had done something similar to this where they took dancing and painting and they combined it. And so I tried it and I decided that I wanted to make films based on them. So I've been working on a 5-part series called the What Is series. And I call the project itself the Art of Creation because when people receive a painting just like that, they'll also get a film, which is the process of the art form itself. So often you just get to see a painting and it's done. But in this process, you get to see a really immersive type of art coming to life in video form. And I think it gives something a little bit more to the painting because you see how it was physically made. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. All right, now let's talk about the other part of your artistic work, which is of filmmaking. So tell us something about filmmaking. What do you think maybe people should know about your work in filmmaking?
Sure. I love to make films. I love both sides of it. I'm very much a technical person. I In college I wasn't when I first started. I just wanted to tell stories and get stories out there. And the more I learned how difficult that is until you know the technical side of things, I began to have a strong interest and passion for the technical side. So I think if I'd want people to know something about me as a filmmaker, it's that I am passionate about storytelling and I'm passionate about learning the most efficient ways to tell that story. So I really enjoy learning different camera tricks and lighting styles and producing and making the storytelling as efficient as possible. So I've been on both sides of things where I usually work as cinematographer, so I'm working with the director and we're designing shots and doing that. And that's really helped me with the art of creation, because doing so much of it on my own, I've been able to understand the technical side and not just a creative side.
Mhm. All
Yeah.
right. So you also create some of your film. Do you want to make mention of anyone that we can sort of examine that maybe you have created? Anyone, of course, that is of your particular interest, I mean, because they have inspired you, or because of the story in it, or yeah, any of your work within the area of film.
Yeah, so there was the films that I'm making under the art of creation, I'm really passionate about. I have two that are released right now on YouTube. On the other side of things, not so dance side of my life, with Crash Content Productions, we produced something in October called Fear by the Fire. And I was able to produce a script that I wrote a year ago involving vampires. It was a story about vampires, and I got to actually play the lead character in the film. And that was, to this day, it has to be my most proud project that I've worked on in film, just because I think all that I mentioned about loving the technical side and the storytelling side really came together when I made that film. And I think it really shows where I'm at in my career, and my passion, because I loved the story. Like the process, I read this great book, and it said something along the lines of, the film you make is not the film you see when you watch it. It's the film you remember making because of the memories that you made while making it. And this film was just so much fun. Like my friends and I, we worked together and for Crash Content, and we were very, I don't know, it was a new step for us, and we saw it pay off in the long run. So it was really great.
The memory.
Yeah.
I like the way you frame that part. That the film you watch is not the film. That the film you watch is. Can you repeat that part? The film you watch is not the film that you make, but the film you have in memory of created. I want you to repeat that part because it's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. It comes from a book called, I believe it's 161 Things They Don't Teach You in Film School. It's a great book, and I loved it. And one of the things they don't teach you, and it says in there, is that the film you make is not the film that premieres at the end. It's the film that you remember making. And because you'll always be able to watch the scene, and everyone else is going to see a scene, right? But you're going to see all the stuff that was going on behind the camera. You're going to remember what you felt that day. If you were arguing with the camera person, you're going to remember everything. So the whole point of that quote is to just make the process of filmmaking as enjoyable as possible, so that when you reflect, you feel really good about it.
That's great. That's great. Because that put you at the center of the entire process.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's about the process. That's why, to jump back to the art of creation as well, that's my inspiration for that, is that I wanted the process of what I'm doing to be as enjoyable as the product itself. So I find that to be a concept that's coming up a lot as I'm going on this journey and discovering myself, both as an artist and just as a young person, is that if the process is not enjoyable, and if I'm not falling in love with the process, then the product can still be great, to some degree. It still can be great, and it may still look good or be enjoyable, but it's that's one moment in time, right? The finished product is one moment in time, or one item, one painting. It's not the process. The process is how you feel about it every day that you wake up and work on it. And I think that's something that I'm really passionate about, is making sure that my life is lined with things that I enjoy doing, not only for the product, but also while I'm doing it.
Thank you for that. Now, the film that you made mention of before related to vampire, you want to tell us what is the central message of that film? What do you want to communicate with it?
Sure. So I've always been I've always loved the vampire like sagas and stuff. I was a big Twilight kid growing up. I love the Vampire Diaries. And I said while watching the Vampire Diaries, I'm going to write a film about a vampire, and I'm going to play it one day. And I did not know that one day was going to be about a year and a half after saying that. I was thinking like far ahead in the future. And then Crash Content, the production company, they were discussing how we were going to do a Halloween film. And, if you had any pitches, to pitch them now. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is my opportunity. I don't have to wait until someone hires me to play this role or make this film. I'm going to do it now. And so I think on the behind the scenes part of things, I think I'd like people to know that if they have a dream and something they care about when it comes to filmmaking, that they don't have to wait until someone tells them that they can make it. They can go and make it right now. And then on the story side of it, the film itself, I would say the film is about love, and it's about what happens when we aren't completely honest, not only with the people that we love, but also with ourselves. And it's taken into, of course, a myth, a mythological side because it goes into the vampire world, but that's the heart of the story. It's about what happens when we're not completely honest with who we are and how that affects people around us too.
So now let make a comparison.
Mhm.
Okay, I know it might not be a fair comparison because we spent more time in your dancing than in your film, but it's okay. Obviously, because you are both of them, you are here and you are also there.
Yeah.
So when you are working in film and when you are working in dancing, where do you feel more satisfaction?
Um, is it fair to say that I feel satisfaction in both? I often, I don't know, this is a constant, I'd say, inner struggle of mine is that I don't necessarily identify with just one. I love both so much. And there, I believe that there are so many different options that I can do each day. So if I'm working on a film that week or that month or whatever, that's fine. And if I'm working on a dance project, that's also fine because they both bring me a fair amount of artistic satisfaction for sure.
I love that. It is fair enough.
Thank you. I feel like I'm there's this, and I love quotes on my website. I even have a whole thing of quotes, but I think this might be on there. But it was John Lennon who said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I'm a musician. If you give me a tuba, I'll make music out of it, even if I've never played it before. And that's how I feel about being an artist and a storyteller. I'm an artist and a story. Well, I'm a human. I'm a woman first, right? That's what comes first is being what's important, which is being with family and friends and enjoying this life. And then secondary, when it comes to my art and my career, I'm an artist and a storyteller. And so when I'm going to be performing in dance, I'm going to give it my all. And when I'm going to be writing a script and creating a film, I'm going to be giving it my all because life is about. I don't like the idea of pigeonholing myself into one specific category because I think that kind of maybe dims my light a little bit when it comes to creative expression. I think I have a lot to say, and whatever medium I choose to say it in, I am trusting my ability to storytell and less so my skill set in that specific focus.
I agree with you 100%. I think that is the way it should be. I've written another book that I titled The Crisis of Identity. So at one point in this book, I was looking at the question of identity and I was saying, how do we even, it's not even possible to just simply give a tag to an individual and say, that is who you are. Then I make an example about myself. I say, well, uh, I am an African because I'm coming from Africa, but I'm also from Nigeria because Nigeria is in Africa.
Mhm.
Then I am a human being, which is another thing, but I am also a man. Then I am a husband, but I'm also a father to a child. So then I'm an immigrant which is living in Italy. So all these are different things, and they are all of them referring to me. Now, is that all complex to look at? If the human being is complex, we
Yeah.
should be living a complex life. So the question of branding is something that we need to approach with care. Otherwise, we risk eliminating the flavor in us.
Mhm.
In fact, there is another book that I wrote. It's part of my research about the presence of Africans in northern Italy. So in this book, I was looking at the educational system, and then I was talking of the topic of multiculturality, as it were, or rural society, as it were. That it is not possible that one culture just exists. Culture is made up of different things in it. And I was saying that if you were to take up an act, maybe a painting, and you want to examine it, it is not going to be possible to just um, uh, have the same element in it, because the painting is made up of contradiction. If it is not contradicting, then it is not going to be anything at all.
Mhm.
In that you're going to have lines, you're going to have colors, you're going to have different form of color, not one color. You're going to have different lines in it. Then if it is a 3D, for example, this is a remote. But in this remote, you see there are already different colors in it. The forms are different. Even the feature itself. So
Right.
this is what make it beautiful. This is what make it appealing in our eyes. If you were to take up a photo camera or a digital camera to take a picture, if all the elements within the frame are the same, the camera will find it difficult to focus, because
Mhm.
the camera is going to start focusing at the edge, which means at the contradiction.
Right.
So yeah, I absolutely believe you, and I agree with you that yes, we are complex, if I want to put it that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that and for validating that, because I think where I am right now in my career and in my life, I don't want to undermine the very real struggle or pushback that there is for for me wanting to be so prominent and do so much in both industries. And I just have to keep looking at it differently and looking at it the way that you expressed it, is that everything in life is complex, and there is a very really real reality of overwhelm and not trying to stack so many things on at once. But I think the most important thing is understanding that there's no need to rush, right? There's no need for it to be, I have to do all of this right now. And that's how I came out of college thinking, is that, okay, I love these two art forms and I need to do them now, because if I'm not doing that, life is going to slip away somehow. And if I could share anything to very recent college grads, like a month out, who are just starting their career, is that slow down. Take it one thing at a time, trust your instincts, and you can do it all. It just may not happen all at once. And so, and that's life, being as complex as you want to be, or as not complex as you want it to be. I think honestly, life is exactly what we want and make it to be, and it's all about acknowledging the fact that we have choice and being very particular about your choices and what you do.
Thank you so much for that, Victoria. That is really important. It is important. We are only here only this time.
Mhm.
So you are going to live this life in full. You cannot say, uh, I think we just need to embrace it. Let's live it. This is the time. This is the only time we are going to be here.
Yeah,
So if you believe you can sing, sing. No problem.
that's it. It's all
If you
mind.
are singing, you think you can also write, write, no problem. That is not stopping you. Because if you don't do it, it means that in your entire existence, you will never write.
Right.
Because you believe you. Anyway, I don't want to make it more complex.
No, I agree. I think it's a great point, and I could probably talk about it for hours. Because it's like we can't get in our own ways, and I think often we believe, or at least in my personal experience thus far, is that, like, if I wanted to write a script and I have X amount of projects already open, there's this pressure of, okay, well, I need to, if I start this, I have to finish it, and if I don't finish it, somehow that means that I'm not good at it, or it's less worthy somehow, or I'm not doing enough. And I think trying to unlearn that is it enough mentality is really crucial in freeing yourself to just do whatever you want and just try whatever you want. Because if you start a script and you don't finish it, who cares? Because if you had fun writing the first 10 pages, that's what matters. I have many paintings that I've finished, and I have many, I'm looking at one right now in my room that I have not finished, and I started it 2 years ago. And some days it haunts me, and some days it reminds me that, you know what, other things took priority. So I just have to let it go and let it flow. And I enjoyed doing it the day that I did it. And maybe it'll get done one day, maybe it won't. The point is, I'm not going to force myself to do something just because I want to get it done. That's that whole do mindset, instead of just being and trying and just being like a kid, just playing and having fun, and reminding yourself that you don't have to be great at everything to do it.
No wonder you're an artist, because you are so beautiful. That is the way it is.
Oh, thank
That is
you.
the way it is. It's a process. We
Exactly.
must love the process, not just the outcome. The outcome is good, but You will lose if you don't like the process.
Exactly. And
You know,
that's sorry, I didn't mean to
please
interrupt.
go.
Keep
Go, go,
going.
go,
No,
go,
no,
go,
no.
go, go.
I want to hear. That's exactly. I get excited talking about this because that's exactly why I started the art of creation. Funny enough, a little anecdote. My senior quote on my graduation cap for college was, "Every act is." Wait, I have it right there. Every action is an act of creation, which is a quote from Hamilton the musical. And that inspired me to name this painting project that I'm working on the art of creation, because it's not the art, it's not the final thing, it's about the process. And the more that I have worked on this and created this for myself, both in singular paintings and now working on it as a possible a workshop that I'm going to give to other people, I've seen how that transcends into my life. It's the process. It's not about where you go. It's about how much fun and how joyful and peaceful you are while you're going there. And that is just like, I don't know if there's too much more to it than that when you think about life. It has to be about the ride, because who cares if the end goal is amazing if the ride was horrible the whole way? Like, you want to be happy while it's happening.
That is the point. In fact, that is what a lot of people need to understand, particularly in this fast world that we are living in today. Because a lot of people are just too busy uh, um, copy other people or copy other things, and they forgotten about themselves. They are lost, Whereas you are supposed to be here. You are here right now. What do you
Exactly.
really love to do? Do it.
Right.
If you don't do it, you never have another time, because this is the only time that you have.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Because what else
what?
is there? It's this moment. There's nothing else.
All right, Victoria, tell me about the business part of it, because here we stress a lot about people able to make money
Mhm.
from what they do, because that also is important. In that um, it wouldn't, okay, it's still good if you do your thing just for the sake of doing them, but it's also good that you do your thing, you're able to make a living from what you do. That is legitimate.
Exactly.
So tell me about the business side of what you do, because you have two businesses relating to what you are doing. Share with us, what are your experiences, what should we know?
Yes. So that is, I'll be completely transparent. That is the point where I am on the preface, like I'm on the precipice of, I'm transitioning into that. The first 2 years out of college were experimenting and trying these different art forms and just playing and making a lot of art. And now I'm evolving these businesses. So I'm currently in process of making them. So I am learning about that process. I have the right foundation in a sense that, like you said, I want these art forms to be my source of income. I want them to be my career. And so that's why I am working on owning these two different businesses. With Crash Content, we just had a meeting this morning with a business advisor. We're setting up our business model and we're working through that. With my workshop, I'm a couple steps ahead, not many, but I'm working on my target markets and understanding what my workshop offers to people. And to explain a little bit about the workshop, so essentially what it's going to be is I'm going to be inviting people to come and create the art of creation with me. So it's basically a studio space or an outdoor space with a big piece of canvas on the ground, and people come and we create the art of creation. So we put paint on our hands or on our feet and basically get into the felt experience and play and kind of put our hands on the canvas and dance through, through our feelings and using paint to see that out on the canvas. And then everyone reconvenes and we have a lunch, we discuss, we reflect on the experience, and then at the end everyone gets to leave with a framed piece of the canvas cut out, just randomized to be a symbol of the community experience. So that's what I'm currently developing, and seeing what target markets would be receptive to that, what areas need that kind of what I describe as a healing experience, or something that's a leisure experience but has that creative outlet so it feels really rejuvenating when finished. I wouldn't call it therapy because obviously it's not a form of therapy, but it is inspired by art therapy. And so on the business end of things, that is what I'm currently working on, is just establishing my business model, figuring out the correct pricing, figuring out what would be appropriate for this type of thing, and where, when, and how I can sell it to different markets.
That's great. Great. So of course you are projecting a kind of a future. You are how do you see the future of this business? Where do you want it to be? Maybe if we were to come back here again in 5, 10 years from now.
Yeah, so I do have this kind of planned out in my head and written down. So for the future of the Art of Creation workshop specifically, I would like it to develop into a traveling workshop, meaning that I can offer it everywhere in different states in America, all over the country, all over in other countries, everywhere. I just want to be able to give this experience that I've found really enjoyable to other people. So seeing 5-10 years ahead that I have done that and I have brought it to different parts of the world. I've met many different people. I've met many different artists in the process. That's what I see unfolding. And then even long term, thinking more logistically and on a business mindset, it is something that I don't necessarily want to have to continually charge for. I want so let me explain what I mean by that. So I want to start the Art of Creation workshop and I want to obviously create it, gain an income from that. I want that to be my main source of income along with the production company with Crash. And so I want that to support me. But at some point, I want to take that money and I want to invest in other assets, such as owning a home, which can be my in house studio, so a multi purpose property. And eventually, I want to be able to own several different homes so that a lot of my income can come from rental income. And then I can offer something like the Art of Creation workshop for almost free. Because I believe that creative expression and art should not be something that really people have to pay for. But also logistically, I know that right now in my career, if I want to move out of my parents' home and create a steady income, I do have to charge for this type of experience. But eventually in 10 years I do see myself turning the money into something like a home that I can own, rent out, use as an asset, and eventually work my way up to just allowing this experience to be a volunteer work for me where I don't actually gain an income from it so that anyone can paint and dance and play like a little kid on a big canvas. And yeah, that's long term where I see it going.
And what about the skill set that you need to be able to achieve this for you to be able to realize this business, manage them, and yeah, I mean, what do you intend to do? To read books? I don't know. What do you intend to do to be able to actualize this dream?
Yeah, so currently I'm working with something which I just discovered, which is so cool. In New Jersey, we have a lot of free small business resources that I did not even know existed. So I'm working with score.org, which is, I believe, run through the state. And I'm working with a volunteer business mentor. So it's free mentoring with someone who is well versed in the business and in running small businesses. And they're currently giving me tips and advice and guidance. And I'm working on building out my business concept, my business model, and then going forward into introducing it to my target markets, either through maybe some publicity, maybe talking to different local newspapers and magazines and getting the word out there, and then of course eventually working with a lawyer and accountant and making sure that all of that stuff is stacked and in check. Because personally, I don't have a schooling in business. And so that's why I'm using as many free resources as I can to get as much knowledge as I can, and to do everything correctly when it comes to the business end of things.
Thank you so much for that. That is great. I love your courage, and I really wish you all this success in it. A lot of people should be doing that. At first, you develop interest for something, you develop the thing, then you build a business around it. If I there is a project I'm currently working on now. It's a book project. It's a three-part series on story writing and content creation. And so at the end of the day, the idea behind it is that you should learn how to do content creation, but you should also learn how to transit from being a content creator to a content entrepreneur. That you must be able to make money from what you do. Otherwise, you're going to be working for people all your life. Anyway, that is just by the wayside because the
No,
book is already here.
that's great. And before we met over Zoom here, I had done a little bit of research about like the books that you've written and stuff, and I love that we can relate on the sense of just having a passion for something and then taking the reins on it and pursuing it. And so I feel in good company in this podcast. So that's awesome that you're creating another book like that. That's great.
Thank you for that. All right, now people that are listening to you now, they get what you say. They like you. They like what they like the idea that you share with them. They want to connect with you. How can they connect with you? Share with them. Use this few seconds to promote yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the best way to reach out to me, to connect with me, is through my Instagram or through my email. So my Instagram is the Dancing Filmmaker, just like that, and no dashes or anything. I'm very responsive on Instagram through DMs, and then also through my website. There'll be a contact form with my business email on there, and that's the best way to reach me. It should be on the last page of my website, which is thedancingfilmmaker.com.
We talked about a couple of things here, from your music, your dancing, actually, not just music, your dancing, your film making business. Of course, we concluded with business. Now, what would you like to conclude the conversation with? Maybe a message, maybe a kind of reinforcing of a line that you find interesting. Please go ahead and do that.
Sure. Okay, I have to think for a moment. I guess I would just want to close with saying, of course, thank you for having me on this podcast. I think this has been such a great experience to talk and just kind of just talk shop too. Like, I love the more I think you put energy on something, the more that you attract it. And I would say to anyone listening, if you're a creative, everyone's a creative, even if you're not working in any form of artistic discipline, everyone's a creative, because we wake up and we decide what our life's going to look like. And even if we're in a situation where we don't feel like we have that creative freedom, we still do. And I would encourage anyone listening to find the parts in their life that maybe could use the most creative nurturing, and to do that and to show up for yourself, because this is the only time we have on this earth, and we want to make the best of it.
Thank you so much for that. That is powerful. It is our time. We must use it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.